Capsule now approaching station.
For ages, mankind has looked up to the stars, dreaming, wondering, worshipping. What is it out? Will we ever get there? Will we ever leave this mundane planet Earth? No longer. The year is 2952. Exploring the stars is what we do. This is Star Citizen. During the free-to-play November, I spent some time in the Star Citizen universe, exploring, testing and trying to figure out this rather unique game. As the free-to-play period now has ended, I figured why not sum it all up, help other players find the game and whether or not it's worth your money and time. In this video I'm going to start giving you some background about the game and where it is today. I'm going to focus a bit on the overall performance, quality and finally I'm going to sum it all up in a recommendation for if you should throw your money on this game. As always, you can skip to whatever part you find interesting, but I think it all makes most sense if you stick around for the entire video. I hope you will enjoy this video, and if you do, why don't you throw in a thumbs up and subscribe? It helps the channel a lot and well, that is the YouTube way, isn't it? I'm supposed to jab about how you support the channel and together we'll thrive. Yeah, that was a bit cheesy, wasn't it? But let's focus a bit on the game now, shall we? After all, that is what we really want to know more about. Star Citizen isn't exactly the new kid on the block. In 2010, the Australian government was hit by cyber attacks following Australian pornography restrictions. The first iPad was released and Mother Nature used a volcano on Iceland to interrupt air traffic. Also, pre-production of Star Citizen started. After years of failed attempts to make the vision of the game Freelancers come true, Chris Roberts finally managed to get going with Star Citizen, which shares many ideas, if not all of them. Crowdfunding has been the main economic drive of Star Citizen, where it already in 2012 drew in over $2 million. The production process has been somewhat extreme though, to the extent that a decade later we still only have parts of the game released as modules in alpha state. The most interesting one according to me is the persistent universe. One could imagine that to only reach an ongoing alpha state a decade later, still with no release plan, would annoy the backers of the game, and you would be right. And of course the first $2 million wouldn't have gotten this far. The Kickstarter days are long gone, but today you pledge by buying ships and starter packs for the alpha version. It has actually made it one of the highest funded crowdfunding projects ever, having raised over $500 million as of September this year. Today there are 3 modules live, one for flying, one for shooting and one for a persistent universe where you basically can do it all. I'm going to focus on the persistent universe because for me that is the real Star Citizen, although obviously not complete since it's called Alpha. The persistent universe typically starts with you waking up in a city on a planet of your choice. Feel free to roam about, explore your personal toilet, make some coffee and try to get out. In Star Citizen, you have to interact with the world around you. Opening a door doesn't just happen because you're pointing at it, but rather you have to find the correct panel to push. Different cities look very different, but they all share some basic structures, such as the lack of any kind of map. In 2952, such obsolete old crap is long gone. This can of course be very confusing, but relax, it isn't that bad. When finding your way through a city, you need to rely on actual signs and waypoints in the world. There is no big arrow showing where you have to go to find a spaceport. You need to find the metro, get on the right one and follow the signs. You'll manage just like in the real world, assuming that the signs are written in a language that you understand. When you start to look around and explore the city where you woke up, you will notice perfectly normal behavior, such as standing on couches, standing on tables, and probably standing in other perfectly normal locations as well. Everything is trying to mimic a working real world, which means that sooner or later you will have to top up on fluids or food. Unlike real life, you don't have to go to the bathroom, probably only because they haven't implemented them yet. Food can be purchased from shops or diners, clothes and equipment, spaceships and weaponry can be bought from different retailers in different cities, space stations, or probably on some market thingy that I haven't tried yet. Eating and drinking can be vital for your survival in Star Citizen, but it's much easier to just visit the hospital where you can get some medical attention, which will ensure that you are fit. This is also where you can regenerate when you die. It's usually just a matter of time. Depending on your starter kit, you may have different chips and different amount of money, but you probably want to get out in space rather soon. What you should know is that this is a simulator, or sort of, so if you ruin your ship, step out into space without a helmet, or stay in too cool an environment or too hot, you will eventually die. And then your stuff is still where you died. Obviously, you will regenerate at the hospital of your choosing, being 2952, elemental things like a new body isn't a problem. Getting your ship back, however, unless you have assurance, is a completely different matter. As is the equipment that you brought, since other players can loot your stuff, it's likely lost and you will have to get your spare stuff or buy new. When in the world, you can basically do whatever you please, as long as you keep your helmet on when there's no air. There are contracts that you can pick up to earn money. Some are more violent than others, some are pure transport requests. You can get paid to do illegal stuff, and you can get paid to track down others that have done illegal stuff. Depending on what you prefer, you can run around peacefully as long as your ship or you isn't attacked, or you can dogfight or fight on foot. It's really an open game when it comes to all this, and honestly, the free-to-play period wasn't long enough to fully experience everything. The world is a large place after all. Speaking about a large place, you actually do have a map over the current stellar system, which you need to navigate around. Unlike many other games, the planets, moons, space stations and asteroids aren't there just for show. With the help of quantum travel, you can go pretty much wherever you want within an unreasonable amount of time, as long as you don't forget to hail any station before landing. Otherwise, it will shoot you down. First of all, keep your helmet and suit on when you go out in space, and remember that some cities are on planets without oxygen. Second, remember to store your spaceship after landing in cities. It turns out that parking tickets to get your impounded vehicle back is as annoying in the virtual world as in real life. Or I would assume at least, because to this day I've only experienced it in Star Citizen. Make sure to fill up on fuel before you go on a long trip, and while at the subject of filling up things, get to the medic area and top up your own water and food stats before you run off too long. When flying, you can spin the mouse wheel to control max thrust. This enables you to have a constant controlled thrust when landing or taking off from space station. It just makes it all so easy. When coming in for landing or taking off from a public space station, make sure to hail the station first. They might shoot you down otherwise. Oh, and I prefer to disable my own cannons on the ship so I don't accidentally fire on someone else. Having them active when I need them is good enough, isn't it? The list of tips can really go on forever, but the final tip when playing the game right now is to simply expect weird things and crashes, but I'll get back to that later. When I started Star Citizen, I knew from other streamers that it would look really good. I knew that there would be a high level of attention to detail, and I knew that some parts would be rocky. Starting with the quality of the graphics, they are really top notch. I mean, just look at this texture and the details on the walls, the floor, the roof. It's really detailed and pretty. Most of the time I just enjoy how good things are looking and how nice it is to see lots of details. Just minor details, like when you equip your gear and you can actually see everything on your body, including spare mags, weapon or health kit. The next thing I noticed right away was the audio and the music. For me, the quality of both music and sound effects tell a lot about the general quality of the game, and they are also really good in Star Citizen. A crowd-funded game isn't exactly what comes to mind, but rather something properly supported by a big company. Maybe with more time in the game I would think otherwise, but so far the sound effects and the music fits together really well, and I didn't find the music repetitive or annoying or out of place as in so many other games. Movement in the game has a decent touch to it as far as I've got to experience in my time playing. I was never in really pressured situations though, so I don't think flaws would have been really noticeable. Animations also generally look good, although they are not perfect. For instance, when I get in my seat in my starship like this, it isn't really perfect, is it? Still, it's good enough I suppose, but this is otherwise a hint that the game is still in the alpha phase. But on the other hand, moving up and down stairs feels really smooth and, well, even if there might be some frame drops here and there, it's generally quite smooth. Did I just fall through the floor? Where am I? Can I get that? Hello? Help? Hello? Oh. So, if the quality of the game is so great, why is it still in alpha? Yes, well, I have categorized this as performance, and that isn't only down to counting frames per second, but it's of course a large portion of it, isn't it? In a game like this, I don't really need 200 FPS, or at least I don't think so. And this is probably a good thing because the game won't let you. Quite often it managed to keep a fairly stable level at, let's say, somewhere around 30 to 60 FPS. I do have the graphics set quite high, but my gaming PC is no slouch either, so that should be alright. The first major problem that some notice right away and some experience after a few hours, or maybe even when starting a game a second time, is that you sometimes get a lot of stuttering. Sometimes the frames just tanks to well below 1, and sometimes it just flows. Exactly what's causing it is nearly impossible to say for me, because there's so many things happening in this game. But I have heard other players and streamers talking about the importance of the disc. Apparently, if you run an old mechanic disc, your experience won't be very good at all. I guess it constantly read and write a lot. I don't use such old things though. I have a fresh NVMe SSD, so that shouldn't be a problem. Yet both me and my friends experience some frame drops from time to time. In a way, bugs are a matter of quality, but it's also about how well the game performs. Regardless of how you categorize them, there are a lot of them. It can be everything from suddenly falling through a floor, as we saw earlier, game responding that you don't have any starship, or why not having a broken game launcher that doesn't even show the button to start the game. Other moments that could have caused swift death was the sudden drop out of my starship, and well, it just goes on. For the first day, I was pleasantly surprised about how few bugs I encountered, but another day I couldn't even start the game, and yet another time, game-breaking bugs such as inability to call starship or use the bracelet could totally just prevent me from playing at all. I also had issues with contracts, primarily the game forgetting about completed ones while not letting me do the starters. As far as I have seen, the Star Citizen Persistent Universe offers a gaming experience that is truly unique. It's a total sink of time, but not because you need to grind, but rather because everything takes time, and for the moment it kind of creates this authentic feeling of actually being a Star Citizen. The problem that I have though is that as a part of this rather cool simulation, it also means that things can hurt you quite a bit when they go wrong. Lost your ship? Bad luck. Buy or rent a new one. You can of course also get the insurance for your ship, but let's ignore that for now. Did you die? You lost everything on your body. You can regenerate and go back, but chances are that someone else already looted you. This means that you can end up spending a whole lot of time doing things, and then because of its current state, the game screws you over big time, and you lose out on all that time for nothing. In addition to all this, the game is completely reset for everyone a bit now and then. To my surprise, this doesn't seem to bother a lot of players that are into it. Some even promote it like a fancy event, resetting everyone to an even level. The game is really in an alpha mode, or maybe actually even in a pre-alpha mode. If you consider alpha having most or all features operational, although with lots of bugs, I personally would say that paying maybe 10, 20 or even $30 for the experience could be a valid option, depending on what this money gives. I really enjoyed the experience, but right now there are starter packs for $45 or more. Normally the starting price is somewhere around $55 and quickly takes off to something much higher. I also find the so-called pledge store idea a bit wonky. I'll tell you what, for me the store it's just a normal store. It has nothing to do with a pledge. What you buy is a game pack, a vehicle or whatever it is, in a game that is still in alpha state. There is no solid plan for taking it out of alpha. What we get to know is a roadmap stretching over the next quarter, or occasionally slightly longer for some teams. The handling when it comes to all this is something that wouldn't be tolerated from a bigger studio. So why am I even considering coughing up the money? Well, because the fact that the game provides something that I don't see in any other game right now or in the foreseeable future. Should you know any, please write a comment, I would love to know. Also, the fact that they actually are transparent about being in an alpha state also gives something. It sets my expectations. So I shouldn't be surprised if my game freaks out from time to time. I should know what I'm paying for. But I should also know that the only promise that I get for the foreseeable future within the Star Citizen universe is a vague promise about continued development, and I don't even know if modules like Persistent Universe will be around. To sum it all up, I haven't yet paid any money for Star Citizen, and with current prices and in current state, I probably won't. I say probably because there is this hidden urge that tries to convince me that it's worth it, but no. I think I'll wait another year, see where it is, and then maybe I'll decide differently. As I said before, should prices drop below maybe $30, then it would be a different matter. But I don't really want to pay $45 or more for a game in this state, with a future as vague as this. Also, think about it. There are many expensive games around us, and currently the industry is just massive. But having raised over $500 million, that is quite a lot. For comparison, Cyberpunk is estimated to have cost somewhere around $170 million in development, and still less than $320 million all in all. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is the second closest, with total estimated cost of $250 million. Latest update on Wikipedia estimates the total cost of Star Citizen yet to be well over $400 million. It's in a league of its own, and to still be at the current stage is really extreme. Oh, and by the way, all numbers mentioned are according to Wikipedia official figures. If we include some speculations, then Red Dead Redemption 2 moves up in an estimated total cost of somewhere around $200 and $300 million. Enough of numbers, they make my head hurt. I hope this video was of use for you, and if it was, please throw in that thumbs up and maybe even subscribe for more like this. If you don't think it was very good or perhaps even bad, and yet you stay this long, if you would like to write honest feedback, I would appreciate it a lot. I know I really can't have any expectations of you spending even more time, but if you do, I'd be a very happy chap. Cheers!
Depressurizing.